Today's episode of The Watch is brought to you by True Detective on HBO. The third season of True Detective was hailed by critics as a triumphant return, exquisitely layered and mesmerizing. You know that I love that season 3. I thought it was incredible. We did the flat circle about it. It was a fantastic show. For your Emmy consideration in Outstanding Limited Series and all other categories, visit hbo.com/FYC for more on True Detective. Today's episode of The Watch is brought to you by Just Crack an Egg. You want to talk about great production value? How about a legit, hot, fluffy breakfast scramble that's packed with all your favorite ingredients? It's called Just Crack an Egg, and all you have to do is add a fresh egg over their hearty ingredients, then stir, microwave, and enjoy any day of the week. It takes less than 2 minutes. Find all 7 varieties of Just Crack an Egg in the egg aisle.
I need support staff to clear the room. Stand up and walk, now.
Hello, and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I am an editor at TheRinger.com. And today, a very special Black Mirror, all Black Mirror episode of The Watch. So here's what happens. Charlie Brooker and Annabel Jones, the minds behind Black Mirror, were nice enough to drop by. It was their second appearance on The Watch. And we had a sort of general Black Mirror State of the Union conversation. So if you haven't seen Season 5, which is just dropped on Netflix on Wednesday, you can listen to that. And then we went episode by episode through the 3 episodes of Series 5. So what Kaya's going to do is you guys can look in the show notes. You can see if you watch Striking Vipers, you'll see what time that starts, what time that conversation. I think we were pretty good about not spoiling anything from future episodes while we were talking about it. At least we tried to be. And then we went through each episode. So the 3 episodes from Black Mirror are all discussed in detail with Charlie and Annabel. Some really fun anecdotes, some really good insights into this series, the show as a whole. It's just so much fun to talk with people who are so smart about what kind of art they make. It's one of my favorite interviews we've done in a while. So we will be back on Monday, probably some X-Men Dark Phoenix talk, although I will say that I appeared on The Big Picture, which should be dropping tomorrow on Friday. And Sean and I had a very, very fun talk about the X-Men and Dark Phoenix. So probably some talk about that. And of course, Big Little Lies on Monday. Thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you soon. Here's Charlie and Annabel from Black Mirror. Charlie Brooker and Annabel Jones, thank you so much for joining me again on The Watch.
Thank you.
The second appearance. It was almost a year to the day that you were here the last time when we talked about your favorite episodes of the show. And The Ringer just put up our own ranking of the episodes, San Junipero winning. This is a crowd favorite. We have like a tendency now, because we do a lot of rankings of stuff, that's like a modified democracy. So like people can vote, but then there's sort of a high council that starts to adjudicate.
Are you the high council?
Not necessarily.
What you're describing there is a corrupt democracy.
Yes, I don't know where we got that idea.
But modified democracy is a sinister way of putting it.
It's a superficial democracy, kind of. So San Junipero number 1, Entire History of You number 2, Be Right Back number 3. That's my favorite. I think I talked to you guys about that before.
Yeah.
Hang the DJ 4, Callister 5, and then we did.
These are all very romantic or emotional, all relationships.
That's the thing, is that I have such a
choice.
different relationship to this show. Metalhead would be way higher on mine. And I have, I mean, I don't know if you call it Metalhead romantic. I suppose you'd have to.
It's a relationship of sorts.
Yeah.
A relationship gone wrong.
Yeah.
That is very interesting. So, yes, a lot of the more emotional heavyweights are in that top 4.
It's almost like people don't want to be horrifically depressed by the stuff they watch for entertainment. But
are we making the wrong show?
Well, I don't know. But it's interesting in that Metalhead, for instance, is a very, very divisive episode, because it's a very strong flavour and it's quite a harsh biscuit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that
a harsh biscuit?
A harsh biscuit? Well, we have used, I'd say cookie, I suppose, over here. You don't say biscuit in the same way.
I don't think you'd say harsh cookie.
Yeah. If he was a harsh cookie, I think you'd have to.
It's a barbed wire cookie
or something. Yeah.
It's like, it's a strong, it's a shot of whiskey
it's a choice,
or something.
Yeah,
it's like,
sure,
so that says a lot about you.
Yeah.
And what you like. So, it's not for everyone. So, but we always know that some of our episodes, some people are going to hate and other people are going to love. And that's usually better than everyone quite liking all of them.
Yeah, I think that's the job of an anthology show, isn't it? To sort of present different, diverse films that people are going to love passionately, and as a result, maybe not love other ones as passionately.
I noticed you used the word films there.
Oh, God, yes, sorry.
Well, no, because...
I know, I have to stop saying it because I realise it sounds very pretentious to
No,
call
not at
them
all.
films.
But it does suggest sort of like they're getting a little longer. They're feeling more cinematic in some ways. I mean, I think that they're always very distinctive visually. But...
Yes, and I think it's that because the reality when we film them that they are all separate films and they're totally autonomous. And so there's no one person, apart from Charlie and I, no one person is across any of the film.
Like a modified democracy.
You guys are the High Council of Black Mirror. This is great. We get to finally meet. When do you know that you've got a series on your hands? So when is the decision made that these 3 to 5 to 6 to 2 or a standalone that's the statement we're going to make now?
It was a slightly different situation this time around, actually, because originally, Bandersnatch, which came out in December, late December, was originally part of season 5.
Okay.
So, for instance, Striking Vipers, which is the first episode of this 3-episode season we just put out, that was the first. We'd shot that before Bandersnatch. I think it was even written. I think I'm right in saying that. Certainly the script was written. And so originally it was going to be, it was going to be part of the season. And as the more we worked on Bandersnatch, the more we realised, well, hang on a minute, this is like doing a whole season in one go anyway, because it's like 5.5 hours of footage.
Yes, Bandersnatch being the interactive.
Oh, sorry, yes, I should point that out.
I'm
Not
saying
a 5.5 hour.
Bandersnatch, the interactive episode.
It wasn't Heaven's Gate.
Yes, it wasn't low. It was like, there was a total of 5.5 hours of potential footage. And also we weren't sure, we sort of thought, oh, that's going to soak up. It's going to soak up so much attention, and it's so much its own thing. We'll put that out as a separate entity and then follow it up with more stories. So, and we used to traditionally back in the day when we were on Channel 4 in the UK, we did seasons of 3. And we sort of felt like that was a good... They complemented each other. And rather than make people wait until we'd done some more, we thought, well, we'll put out Bandersnatch and then we'll put out this. So some people have been a bit sore sort of saying, oh, you've done 3 episodes, you do 6. But actually, I would say to those people, I would take them gently by the hand and I would say, look at the overall running time, like we did Bandersnatch. If you can add this to Bandersnatch, if you imagine that, then there's more.
Yeah.
We've done more, actually. We've done more. And then...
We've over-delivered.
That's right.
I wouldn't be that cocky to say that. I'd say we've done more. I wouldn't say we've over-delivered, you little peasant. Am
I the little peasant?
No, that's the
Black
tone
Mirror
you've
super
just...
fan.
Yeah.
He's just brushing them aside.
I'm saying I'm
that's
treating them with
written.
respect.
Brooker slaps down.
No, she's the one treating them like, you might as well call them muggles or whatever. Like the way you're disdainful.
I'm saying to you and I, we have given more than a season this year.
You said over-delivered.
Yeah, we have, because we've done about 7, 8 episodes in total.
I admire our fans so much, it would be impossible to over-deliver to them, to those wonderful people.
But so what was the decision-making process then to assemble this season the way it was with Striking Vipers coming back into this season then?
No, so maybe Charlie's mispresented.
Oh, wait, so maybe I misunderstood. So Bandersnatch was supposed to be in this season. Striking Vipers was filmed.
No, so we filmed them all together.
Oh, okay.
Smithereens was also shot around the same time.
Okay.
The last 3 and Bandersnatch were all produced and filmed together.
I got you.
And we carved out Bandersnatch and put it earlier.
Okay. Let me ask you this then. So do you think about these things in terms of what's going to eventually wind up happening? Like when you're making series 4, do you know already that there's a bunch of stuff in the pipeline? Like without giving away like what might happen in the future, how active is Black Mirror Industries where it affects what's happening with what you guys are doing?
Sometimes there's story ideas that are skulking around in the background for quite some time, and sometimes you're waiting for the right time to do it because you don't want to present a selection of stories that are too similar. And I think that's one of the most important things we feel with every season is that we want each story to be idiosyncratic and separate from the rest. So sometimes you sort of think, okay, I've got a really horrible idea, but we've got a really horrible story in this season. So let's hold on to that until we... So sometimes thematically you sort of hold things back for a while.
Yeah, we like to spread the horror.
And the joy.
Oh, and the joy.
And the joy.
There's a lot of laughs in this season.
This season, there's quite a few. Again, actually, I mean, if one thing that we heard about, we can't win. Because one thing some people said about Bandersnatch was, well, I just wanted to give him a happy ending. There were no happy endings there. I didn't feel there was a single happy ending.
Well, that's because you gave them a choice.
I would disagree.
This is Black Mirror. What were they expecting?
Well, then in this season there are some more hopeful endings, and some people have said, "Well, I want a horrible ending."
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, you can just click back a bit on click any episode you like, then, mate. It's all right. Or switch on the news if you want some. All right. We were pleased, actually. You mentioned Bandersnatch there and Stefan. We were pleased that with that. When people presented that as a criticism, when some people said, I just wanted to give Stefan a happy ending, and I found that frustrating that I couldn't, we took that as a win because it meant you were absolutely invested in him as a character, which meant that hopefully it was functioning for you as a film. You were invested in the character and it wasn't just some gimmick.
I just recently experienced this. Did you guys watch, I assume you did, did you watch the second series of Fleabag?
Yes.
And you get so wrapped up in their story that even though you know what's going to happen, you almost feel like physically uncomfortable because of how much you like care about what happens to these two people at the end.
Yes, absolutely. So her breaking the fourth wall just lures you in even more.
Yes.
You feel like a confidant.
Yeah.
You feel it doesn't in any, that worry that when you do break the fourth wall that you're going to break the concept and the conceit. And I think it was absolutely the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we were trying to do with Bandersnatch, as you say. You sort of if the interactive element was ever going to force the viewer back and distance the viewer from the character, then why bother making the film?
Right.
And so it was one of the key things. In fact, when Netflix first asked us whether we'd ever do an interactive episode, we said no, because for that very reason, that you wouldn't have that emotional engagement. And then when we realised that when we found the way of presenting the interactivity, introducing it and then subverting it and exposing it to the viewer and exposing it to the protagonist, so the protagonist was then Stefan is able to remain a character, a fully formed character, because his actions are consistent and he knows that he's being controlled. As soon as you introduce that element, then you can have it all. You
Sure,
can have that emotional
it gets
engagement.
into the whole idea of whether choose your own adventure necessarily means choose your own ending.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's still we're more talking about things that happen along the way rather than what like a happy ending or some sort of fulfillment for this.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's interesting that some people came to that with different. People's reactions were very different, sometimes depending on how some people would say, oh, I'm not very good at this. Like, I wish I haven't been able to win yet. And which is interesting. It was an interesting way to look at it. I mean, we did sort of slightly play into that because there was a character who was reviewing the game that he would produce. But no, so that was fascinating that there's some people who try and play that like it's a game, and there were lots of people who just wanted the protagonist to have a happy ending and couldn't get there.
But I think that, there's going to be more interactive projects out there which will use it in a different way.
Yeah.
We were using it in a very, in a straight film, and we were hoping to emphasise and enhance, rather, the emotional engagement and also the complicity with which you feel when you are forcing these decisions upon a character. But, if the Kimmy Schmidt interactive will be very different, and the interactivity will be used probably for much greater comic effect.
Sure. Sure.
You'd hope. You'd think that there'll be there's lots of sort of meta gags you can do there. My kids love the Bear Grylls. Have you tried the Bear Grylls one? There's a Bear Grylls one, You versus Wild. My kids who are 5 and 7 love that, and it's like he's constantly like, so do you want me to? Oh no, here I am. Will I eat this live wriggling caterpillar, slurp its brains out, or will I eat my own poo? Which am I going to do? And
there's really no good option there.
No, and he does it. He
eats
a cat. He eats a big grub thing. Ugh.
It's rough.
It is rough.
The idea, I think that you're just worried that. I think that people go into that thinking, how much danger can I actually put this guy in? Physical danger. I was curious because, obviously we just did this ranking, so I've been going back through the past seasons, and it's often been mentioned like how unfortunately society is catching up with Black Mirror and surpassing it in terms of some of its horrors. But I was also wondering whether or not, or how production on the show has changed over the years, both in terms of the writing process, but also the access you guys obviously have to actors who are, I mean, I know Topher Grace is like a huge fan of the show. You have people out there who know Black Mirror, want to be a part of it. How does that change making the show, the awareness of the show out there?
Hopefully it doesn't. I mean, well, because I go back to my film thing, because they're all very separate and different, you approach all of them like they're their own individual thing, and you are only ever trying to serve that script as well as you can. And so that applies to the casting. You are only looking for the person who one sort of reads the script and responds well to it and knows what it's trying to do and understands its tonal pitch. Because often with Black Mirror, you could take some of these films and make it complete different genre almost. So finding an actor who really wants and understands the script and wants to play it in the same way as you do is obviously key to some of them. We've just been so lucky with our casting, whether it's Daniel Kaluuya and Hayley Atwell or Letitia Wright, but often it's about the timings being right, in that sort of finding someone who is always going to be a massive success because they're a brilliant actor. Sure. And we've just been lucky that we've been there
right as they're on that ascendancy.
Yeah. But it's all about the actors' tastes as well, because some of the shows are incredibly, as Charlie's saying, idiosyncratic, and not every actor will want to take that script. So it's about finding a like-minded actor who feels that that's a film that's worthy of being made.
You discuss them as films, but
yes, I'm sorry I did that.
No, you keep saying the F word.
Did I? Sorry.
No, the film word.
Oh, sorry, I'm an idiot.
You can swear on this show.
Oh, fuck.
You did exactly that last time.
I swore.
You were told you could swear. I'm sure last time you were told you could swear, and you immediately said fuck. What is wrong with you? Potty mouth Jones.
Potty mouth Jones here. I was noticing too that even though you're saying, we try to catch these people on the ascendancy, and that we've been really lucky doing that, you look at something like what Andrew Scott does in this season, Andrea Riseborough does in I think season 4, I believe. There's so many examples. Hayley Atwell, like you referenced. People doing things that are pretty unique these days. I don't know necessarily that you would see Andrew Scott ever carry almost every single scene, every single shot of a 70-minute episode of television or short film where he's got to be going and at a high pitch for that long. And there's such unique opportunities for these actors.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously, I think that's one of the things, hopefully, that appeals to them, is that it's a relatively short commitment taking part, because it's one film episode
thing.
Flepisode.
That's good.
Well, I don't know. Is it? Anyway, so it's a relatively short commitment because it's going to be quite. It's as you say, it's usually quite intense.
Yeah,
and hopefully, because we try. Hopefully, it's always surprising. So they'll find themselves doing exactly as you say, things that might be on the fringes of their comfort zone or are just so unusual and bananas that they an opportunity like that isn't going to come along very often.
Yeah, and I think it's a good example would be Anthony Mackie in Striking Vipers. Taking a guy who's often cast for his masculinity,
superheroism,
or whether it's in Hurt Locker where he's the alpha male, and just absolutely turning that on its head. And so when Anthony read the script and he immediately said, I want to do this.
Really?
Because it appealed to the sort of the side of him that's like, I'm not going to get many opportunities to be totally the opposite.
Yeah.
And to take this and to say and to sort of just boldly, because the Striking Vipers is an odd film in that it's quite ambiguous what's actually going on in this unique sexual experience between this hetero friends in this unique virtual reality sexual fantasy fulfillment world where they are having a unique, confusing experience where sexual gender is totally fluid and they have no idea what roles they're playing even. And so for Anthony, this was like, I absolutely want to do this. This absolutely turns everything on its head. So, you have those unique little moments like that.
Okay, we're going to get into some of the individual episodes of Series 5 of Black Mirror, Season 5. It's on Netflix now. You can watch it now. So we'll go through each episode by episode, and you can refer to the show notes to see where those conversations start and stop. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode of The Watch is brought to you by DC Universe, the first all-DC platform for us DC fans. Join DCUniverse.com and get sucked into new original series like the highly touted Titans, or catch up on favorites like Krypton Season 1. Starting May 31st, jump into new episodes of Swamp Thing, dropping weekly, and follow Abby Arcane as she investigates what seems to be a deadly swamp-borne virus in a small town in Louisiana. She soon discovers that the swamp holds mystical and terrifying secrets. You can also get your comic book fix with thousands of new comic titles just added to an already impressive comic library. This includes more recent titles and complete storylines like Superman: Secret Origin, Batman 2011, and Harley Quinn 2013. Also available on the platform are tons of the classic DC movies we love, like Batman and the original Superman movie. If animated films are more your speed, Reign of the Superman and Justice League versus the Fatal Five are now available, and you can access DC Universe on your favorite devices. Join and get a year's worth of DC content at DCUniverse.com. Let's talk a little bit about the episodes in this season.
Okay.
So there's only 3, and
Don't say only. Say a whole. Wow, there's a whole 3 episodes.
It's this bountiful delivery of a harvest of Black Mirror episodes.
Over delivery.
And let's talk about Striking Vipers first. Do you guys think that this is an optimistic episode or film?
Ultimately, well, so the ending is, I would say, is bittersweet, but it's quite pragmatically romantic. In fact, the saddest aspect of it is probably what's happened to Carl, because Carl is lonely 364 days of the year, and he gets to go into the game with Danny one day a year.
Well, it sounds like he practices a lot on the side.
Well, yes, but then he says, but it doesn't. But then that's ultimately empty for him. He says, and he's like Tundra, the polar bear. It was just not. It was not enough. So it's throughout the episode, really, and there's quite a few things going on. But the problem is that people aren't communicating with each other actually, and by the end, they've managed to reach a compromise by simply being honest and open. And literally Danny opens his mouth and tells Theo what has been going on.
Yeah.
And you see that that then presumably brings her to say, well, here's my fantasy. Here's what and they reach a sort of compromise. It's not a traditionally romantic ending to something, but it's like there's a lot of trust there and open communication. And it doesn't, we do end on a traditionally romantic image, but in sort of Black Mirror style, it is undercut by the unusualness of what's going on.
I want to keep going with my line of question, but I did want to just digress. Did you guys shoot him telling Theo? Because you cut away from it, right?
No.
Okay, so I was just curious whether or not there was a version of that where he's like, so here's the thing.
No. It always said, in fact, you know what, we did cut one thing. Because which was in the script, and it was in the cut, I think, the first time, which was it showed him open his mouth, and then it cut to the exterior of the car, and you saw the brakes slam on. And we took that out because it felt like it just felt a bit
cheesy.
Right. Well, it just felt like it was trying to be a comic beat at a point where you didn't want one.
That episode is really interesting to me because, and that was directed by Owen Harris, correct? Yes. Yeah, so who also directed San Junipero, among other episodes.
Be Right Back.
Be Right Back,
of course. So 2 of my favorites, and then there's this really funny thing going on where I actually found a lot of the moments in Striking Vipers quite funny, but tonally, I think almost it's like, it's quite serious. There's even like their actual fight that they have is kind of got like the Blade Runner rain coming down. And, it must be such a delicate balance when you're trying to figure out tone, visual tone, acting tone, and also, but we kind of also want to let the viewer know it's okay to laugh at that.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that you let the humor find its place in the performance, and you let the actors find that and let them, it's sort of like it's all played straight, and because, the themes in it are, some quite weighty and serious themes. So it's all played straight, and then let the characters find that level of humor and how much they want to play it.
Sure.
I think it's interesting also, I mean, with something like that where there's the world in which you could do just a completely comic version of that story, which was just played.
Version.
Yeah, exactly. That's just played for sort of laughs. And I
think I love my friend or whatever.
Yeah, so it would be like that I don't think would be as powerful. However, if you don't acknowledge the fact every now and then, and we do this in other episodes. I mean, we do it a bit in Be Right Back. There's a couple of moments of humour in that as well. It's a very sad episode overall, but we occasionally you acknowledge the sort of absurdity of what's going on. I think that is a little release valve, and it lets the audience know you're not just. Do you know what I mean? You're not just presenting this as like an absolutely harrowing sort of drama.
Sure.
You're aware that what's going on is confusing, and there are elements of it that are amusing and awkward. And
there's that moment in Be Right Back where they're at the cliff and she says, "Well, Ash would be crying and he would be so upset." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Oh no, please don't." You know, it's this really like funny moment in the most heartbreaking part of the episode.
But, you know, it's sort of, as in life, people use humour to sort of cope as a coping device, and that's actually reflected in the show.
The line there's one line in Striking Vipers that I saw has become a bit of a meme, which is where, I can swear, can't I? So
you sure can.
Where Carl says, out of context as well, it sounds quite odd, says, "I fucked a polar bear and I still couldn't get you out of my mind." Yeah. Which is obviously...
How is this being used? How is this being deployed?
So this is, he says that at a dinner party. Is it the dinner party?
I remember the line. I mean, just how are people using...
How is he having sex with the polar bear?
How is this meme being
distributed?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. It's more that people have been sort of putting images of polar bears around, and I think screen capping that particular line.
Okay. So it's just a very pro-polar bear kind of thing.
Yeah, just a kind of, whoa, there's a line. So it's, sorry, I thought you were asking me how did the union with the polar bear
I want to leave that to my imagination.
Exactly. That's the best place for it.
Yeah.
But, and so obviously when you're writing a line like that, you know, well, at one point I said, "Oh, should we cut that out? Should we cut that out?" And we left it in. I'm glad we did, because it's there it makes you laugh, but it's also, it comes in the middle of a delicate scene.
Yeah, and embraces the ludicrousness of the situation.
I will never play Street Fighter again the same way. I was wondering whether or not it had to be. Was there something about the dynamic of a Street Fighter Mortal Kombat type fighting game that works for that sexual energy, or is it because you couldn't really do it with like a Resident Evil, like a first person shooter?
No, I mean, we'd done San Junipero was sort of in my head. I was thinking of Grand Theft Auto and open worlds like that. Specifically, I was thinking of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which was set in the 80s. But with this, I think it was because I liked the thought that this was it's a world where it's not designed for freedom that they're going into. It's a world where you're supposed to be doing something else. Clearly the programmers have done too good a job at simulating reality, and all sorts of things are going on. It's also the characters in those games tend to be hyper-sexualized. They're like really ripped, or they're really buxom, or they're just
not wearing the type of clothing you'd wear typically to do mixed martial arts fighting.
They're wearing revealing sort of like
booby,
or chesty or abby. Is that a phrase? Revealing clothing in beautiful surroundings. Yeah, and alone. There's no one else there.
Sure.
So there's only the two of them. And on top of that, one of the sort of starting points was for the episode in a way was I was talking about how I used to play Tekken in the 1990s on the PlayStation, and that with my flatmate, and we suddenly became aware one day we would play it until all hours of the morning, and it was the summer and the window was open, and I suddenly realised that for the last however many hours, our neighbours had been hearing two guys in our flat going, oh yes, oh God, oh no, oh yes, and so they must have thought that there was an absolutely insatiable, like either there was some sort of sex dungeon going on, or an incredibly in love couple living there.
And there wasn't.
Who had, but we're into some sort of sadomasochistic, because there was often a lot of because when you're playing those games, you go, you bastard, things like that a lot of the time as well, and it's like yes. So it must have sounded nuts, and that's funny, that's just funny, and so there's something about that, the sort of, and it is ultimately in those games you are grappling.
Yeah.
You were physically grappling with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So there was all of those elements were what fed into it. And it just felt like it was unexpected. If they'd gone into more of a sort of Second Life or a GTA sort of like world, it might have come as less of a
Echo
surprise.
the Dolphin could have been.
Echo the Dolphin. Well, that's something that Carl should try.
Yeah.
If Tundra
Moved on from polar bears.
if Tundra didn't work,
These poor animals.
Echo the
What are we
Dolphin.
doing?
Like,
Started with a pig and
I
now...
don't want to start looking at video games and trying to work out which ones. Like, I mean, there's, yeah.
FIFA.
FIFA, you could in FIFA,
That's
don't
more than two.
they celebrate goals, don't
Sure,
they?
they sure do. Yeah.
They do a lot of sort of hugging and cuddling in that, don't they?
It's coming home.
So they could just keep that going. There used to be. I have not played an ice hockey game in many years.
So
but
that
they
you
used
could
to
start
break
the
into
fights.
fights.
Yeah,
It
that
used
was a big
Wow.
thing. Remember in Swingers? Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
They do the
yeah.
they have the fight. He's like
Yes.
watching
like
them.
NHL, whatever.
Yeah, it was
yeah.
like 94 or whatever it was. Okay, so that's Striking Vipers, such an interesting episode. The reason why I was asking about the optimism was because it does feel like a sister episode to San Junipero in some ways. I mean,
Man Junipero. We sort of
But,
we jokingly sometimes called it that. I don't think it. I mean, there are thematic similarities in terms of. Well, not so much thematic,
No,
but in
there
terms of the
aren't.
technology
Yes,
that's
the
going
technology,
on.
but
They
not
both
thematically.
involve people going into a fantasy world.
Yes,
effectively.
but Striking Vipers is more about, a lot of it is about porn. It's about when porn becomes so sophisticated and personalized and immersive. When does it become not a healthy distraction and it becomes a form of cheating?
Yes.
And so those questions are at the heart of
the
it.
theosaur and that certainly is there. I was really more just thinking about it in terms of like, if you find happiness, does it matter how you got there? Or
Yes.
does it matter what that
But
happiness?
I suppose the happiness in Striking Vipers is a sexual
yeah.
high.
Yes.
It's more, they obviously, because they're friends and they have that camaraderie, there's a contentness at the heart of it, but it is about a sexual fantasy that they're living through.
Yes, well,
whereas
for Danny,
San
whereas
Junipero,
for Carl,
it is totally...
I don't know,
Yes,
for Carl, it feels
is-
certainly more, there's more,
Well, he has an intimacy that he doesn't have in the real world.
and it's more probably personally revelatory to him.
Yes, absolutely.
Than whereas for Danny, it's more about his concerns about fidelity with his, like, is he cheating on his wife?
Yeah.
And
it's and it's it's recognizing that his youth has passed and he's not
Sure.
as virile
Yeah.
and sexualized as he once was. So it's a wish fulfillment in a different way. Whereas San Junipero, is totally different in that, not totally different in that most of the film takes place within the VR world, and these are two people able to find a romantic liaison free of all prejudices. So I think thematically they're different.
They're different.
Yeah.
It just, for a while there, was workshopping a take that San Junipero is actually heartbreaking at the end. It's just like
because they're both dead? you
Yeah, I
mean?
mean, obviously, yeah.
I think there's a heartbreak to San
Yeah,
Junipero.
but I mean, there's something bittersweet about, maybe it's the Linda Carlisle song, I don't know, but there's something about like watching those hard drives get put
that's
away.
definitely
Oh,
there
yes.
that is there as a it is a weird one because it's sort of beautiful and even the winking lights on the hard drives are described in the script as beautiful.
Yeah.
That it's like a star field or something.
Yeah.
But there is a sort of cold practicality to the fact that they're literally heaven is a place on earth, and that place is a server farm.
A cloud, yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
cloud, yeah.
And Gugu says, how can you make sense of forever? The question is asked, but then she just, and also that for her entering the world is sort of having to say goodbye to her daughter and her husband. There's a tragedy to it all.
You've managed to depress me now.
Sorry, it's
Oh,
just,
good.
it's
Let's talk about
it's-
Smithereens.
Okay.
layered.
So let's lighten the mood by talking about Smithereens. Yeah.
So I'm definitely at the place right now where I would watch Andrew Scott read an IKEA manual on
Well, you're
So
in
you'll-
luck because he's
Yeah.
doing that.
I was gonna
he's
do that,
doing that
Jen.
on Broadway.
I was going to say that's season 6.
It's just IKEA. IKEA furniture can be its own Black Mirror episode. I love this episode.
Oh.
I was curious, is this the only episode that's ever had a place and time card?
Apart from San Junipero.
Well, but San Junipero cheats. It doesn't
Yeah.
have a place and time card, but it says there's right at the start. The first thing you hear is a DJ going, "That's
Yeah.
Heaven is a Place on Earth, the biggest hit of 1987 so far. Viewers did that exposition go in? But we're cheating. I think it is the first time, and we cheat. Actually, we definitely cheat at the end of San Junipero, because when you see the gravestone, it doesn't say the years that anyone died.
That's not cheating.
It is, because we didn't want to specify what year it really was.
But it's not important to the story.
It's cheating.
Did you guys, did the mason that you guys had hired to carve the tombstone get off work too fast? Or?
I had a name later. I can't even remember what. There was something else that we tinkered with something on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think so. And we deliberately, that was part. Now, we've done other episodes that are set in the present day with that, like Shut Up and Dance was one that had no sci-fi element and was set just in the present day. National Anthem as well. The Waldo moment was not really sci-fi, particularly. There's a bit of, there was nothing that's impossible in there.
Yeah.
This we specifically put a date and card time thing up there for two reasons, I think. One was we actually genuinely wondered whether social platforms would change the policy. There's a subplot in there that's to do with a woman trying to get into her daughter's account. And they won't let her. It violates their privacy policy. And we were actually wondering whether that position would have changed by the time this went out. And then another thing that's probably even the bigger reason was probably also, it just says right at the start, this is today.
Sure.
So you're not thinking I'm going to see, he's going to, it's a VR simulation that's all happening in his head or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask, I guess, is because there is an industry out there of people trying to sort of assemble a chronology or a timeline among these episodes and sort of projecting out is Metalhead the end point or something, or something, trying to figure out what that is and where the Prime Minister and National Anthem, because obviously he's mentioned in Smithereens, but
he's mentioned in Nosedive as well.
Oh, right.
But there's a little Facebook update from him. No, Facebook style platform, I should probably say. Just saying, it's a blink and you'll miss it. It says in the background, got thrown out of the zoo today in an unhappy face. But
that's good.
I would say that it's going to be very hard for anyone to actually construct a fully functioning timeline, because although we do explicitly say, in quite a few of the episodes we nod to other things, and when you watch the news tickers in episodes, we're almost always referring directly to other things. And because I decided, it used to be asked, is it all in one shared universe? And I'd say no. Then I changed my mind and started saying yes. Since Bandersnatch, I realised, it's a multiverse.
Oh, okay.
Because Colin Rittman, who seems to be the king of this multiverse, who seems to know, can transcend time and space, knows that there are parallel realities. So I'm guessing there's a Black Mirror multiverse, which therefore gets us out of any continuity problems.
Few.
Yeah. So it's a four-dimensional diagram.
We embrace the multiverse.
It's okay.
So those people working on the timeline need a 3D printer.
They also need an advanced degree in astrophysics or whatever it takes.
And a lot of time.
Yeah. There's an element of Smithereens that feels very like it could be in the Guardian live blog on any given day. Is it the first time? I don't know if it's the first time, but did it feel more ripped from the headlines necessarily than other episodes than you guys have done? Necessarily. Just because Topher's character, obviously, I think is like, it feels like a one-to-one to Jack Dorsey, sort of.
Yeah, and there was a line that was in there that we had to lose for sort of time, where somebody referred to him, he's out in the desert, like doing this meditation retreat, because one reason is because he's depressed over all the political stuff that's been going on.
Yeah.
So it's implied that he's been taking flack for stuff
Sure.
on the platform. We were aware... he wasn't based on an individual, although I can't remember if it was, in my head it's before the script was written. Maybe it was after now. I'm not sure when it was that Jack Dorsey, who's the Twitter guy, went off on a
silent retreat.
And tweeted that he had, and when he came back he said, I went on a silent retreat, it was great, and everyone, lots of replies were going, what are you going to do about the dances on the platform, Jack? It's all very well going off, and thanks, I'm glad you're mindful. Mind this! So there was certainly and there was a great irony, it felt, in having this head of a big communications platform being literally locked away, uncommunicative, and also struggling with the ethics of what he's created.
Yeah.
As out of control as Chris is.
Yes. So we were aware, I think that stemmed from two things. One, we wanted to do a story that the subplot in that, which is where we meet Hayley, the woman whose daughter committed suicide, and she just wants to get into her daughter's account. We'd been obsessed at one point with turning that into a story idea. And it felt like the problem with trying to turn that into a story idea was it implied that when you open, on its own, I mean, when you open that inbox, when the character finally cracks the password or whatever and gets in there, you would expect some answer. And I think that would be quite glib to suggest that there is an answer. There would either be a glib reason that you were suggesting, or it would turn into a mystery thriller. Oh, she didn't commit suicide. She was murdered.
Yeah, some big melodrama.
It would turn too melodramatic. So we were like, well, I'm sure there's a story idea here. And also, then we were talking about occasions when, like one time I got in an Uber and was just gawping at my phone, as I often am. And suddenly I was aware that the car had stopped, and I looked up and I thought, I don't know where I am.
Yeah.
And the guy had got out and he was rummaging around in the trunk of the car. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And then he came out, he had a bottle of water, and he went, oh, sorry, I was just thirsty. I didn't want to disturb you. You're on your phone. I was like, oh, God. And we were discussing moments like that. And similarly, we'd been having lots of conversations with people who were trying to limit, who were concerned about how hooked they felt, like that they were just doing things like setting their phone screen to monochrome, because that apparently makes your phone
There's
less
all sorts of gimmicks that you
seductive.
can use sort of to do
limiting the time. Kitchen safes, like some people who put their phone in a safe.
There's like, you can basically start to get it to turn off its apps at a certain point, but you can also just say like, give me 15 more minutes all the time, which just seems almost more cruel than just, you know what I mean? Like you can have the screen time go down, but then you can just say like, remind me in 15 minutes. And that makes you feel more like a mouse with cheese, kind of.
Yes. But the irony of the drug trying to wean you off itself is a funny one. And, you know.
What a cigarette saying, I think that's enough now.
Yeah, exactly. So, we don't have enough self-control. The phone has to tell us when to stop using it.
Yes.
It's just crazy. But I think there would just been little things like the little ingredients appearing on the phone to keep you lured in, whether it's number of emails now being a circle and telling you how many emails you've yet to look at. That's sort of, teasing you.
Yes.
All of these new elements that were appearing that were making people harder to sort of resist. And so it just felt all of those themes coming together.
Yeah. It felt like everyone we spoke to, everyone we were speaking to, if you'd go, oh, I've just tried this, I've just got this app called Moment and it tells me how much time I'm spending on my phone and it's depressing. They go, oh, I know, I've got this and I tried doing this and I switch it to airplane mode and I try and I can't stop. So
like everyone going through breakups. The most important relationship in everyone's life was with their phone and how to break up with it.
Well, you know what it's like when you lose it or something, you're like, oh God, it's like a limb's fallen off. But you have phantom limb syndrome where you're like, I'll Google to see where my phone is. Well, no, I can't. It's like terror. Find my iPhone is like you use that all the time.
I had a really terrible moment this morning where I was coming into work, but I have this. I don't know if you've noticed these trees in LA. They're called jacarandas. Do you have those?
I don't know. Well, if I saw one,
It's basically the purple flowers. They blossom at the end of May, and they fall a lot. And it's beautiful if it's happening somewhere outside of your, like away from your home.
Right.
But they are basically, they turn into gum almost as soon as they hit the ground, and they stain everything, and they suck. And the point is that I was sitting in my car outside of my house, supposed to go to work, Googling best way to clean up jacaranda flowers instead of just sweeping them up. And I was just like, I honestly hope like my car explodes right now to save me from what I've become. Whereas instead of just like brushing these flowers up, I'm like Googling, I'm on message boards looking for best ways of cleaning them up.
The best way. That's what you need to find. Not just the way to do it, the best way to do it.
It's a weird way. I mean, we were aware in doing it. There was a slight risk, and we slightly steer into it at one point, which is that sometimes a criticism of the show is people say, it's what if phones put too much? It's somebody complaining that, it's people saying these kids today are on their phones too much. And in a way, like Andrew Scott's character, Chris, does deliver a rant that is sort of that. It's like almost an unhinged version of that he does at one point. But I think it's, we're not saying that, and the episode doesn't say, this is all wrong. It sort of shows there's definitely an issue there, which is you've got however many apps you've got on your phone, they're all fighting for your attention and they're all optimized to suck up as much of your attention as possible. And there is a strange... It must be the growing trend for meditation and mindfulness and stuff like that must be related to this, that people are starting to feel like
it's the addiction and the cure at the same time.
The
You get sold both.
Well, I started using it, and of course the first thing I did was like Googled like meditation
best
app.
meditation app.
How can I meditate like quickly by pressing a button while doing something else?
Can we just do a quick, brief in praise of Andrew Scott moment?
Oh my God!
Let's
do it much longer.
The amount of work we have to do in post to make him look less, because he's such an ugly man. He's so ugly and.
Don't objectify Andrew.
We were being
right?
sick.
Yes, I know. How lucky were we?
Yeah, you guys caught him before. So a lot of people are saying, "Is this what becomes of hot priest?" He gets his heart broken, and then he becomes an Uber driver. I just thought he was remarkable in this, and it must have been. It's just one of those things where if you don't have the chops to pull it off, I don't know what that episode is.
No, absolutely. You know, he's a great theatre actor, so he's used to working with a smaller space. And in this example, a car. You know, so much of the film takes place with the two of them in a field in a car.
Yeah.
Not the greatest pitch to an actor, but he.
And it was genuinely, I think, during a heat wave in Britain as well. So it was like really, it was uncharacteristically hot. You know, so it was like uncomfortable.
So he was in shock as well as hot.
Because it was like, it's not.
Oh my God, what's happening to the world?
Sky is blue. Sky is blue.
You have to change all the lighting.
It's like
actually have sun.
The DP was, what do we do with this bright ball of light?
But he is astounding.
Oh, yeah.
He's astounding in it. And like you say, he has to carry so many, like he's in close-up a lot of the time. It's very claustrophobic. He had to, again and again and again, get to a place of absolute desperation. And I mean, it's just, that's one of the things that, I think that's one of those things that I did not appreciate until you start hanging out on set all day long. And being on set can be incredibly boring unless you feel like it's a hive of activity. But if you're sort of just sitting there waiting to see the next take, it can be quite boring a lot of the time. But then you're watching. When I used to hear actors sort of saying, oh, you know, I had to go to a really dark place for this role, I used to think, oh yeah, okay, you're basically playing Let's Pretend. Come on, let's be honest. Oh, boo-hoo. So you cried a bit like, ooh. And then you forget, when you watch it, when you're there and you watch it in person, and they're having to do that and channel that in front of loads of people. Again, I did not appreciate, genuinely didn't appreciate how many times they have to do it. Again and again and again from different angles, and they've got to match, and they've got to, like, and it's all, like, but it sounds like I just genuinely didn't know until you see it, and then you realise, oh yeah, actually that is really bloody hard, isn't it? And it's not just that, but it takes it has to take a huge toll on you. Yeah. So to do that for that lot, I'm basically saying they are the biggest heroes in the world.
Yes.
Let's do a big award
should even
show
do like
to celebrate their work. Should we do that?
I'm saying this society clearly does not celebrate them enough.
If only there was a city in the world that did celebrate
People
them.
don't look up to them or
They're
want to be
unsung
them.
heroes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just only want to be in the background.
I want to get to Ashley too, but I do want to say that one of my favorite things is whenever I fire up a Black Mirror episode is to see what the mini genre thing inside the episode is going to be.
Yes.
That you guys got to do like basically an episode of Bodyguard inside of this, but Bodyguard, if it was with conference calls, was really, really funny, as was Topher Grace. Where did you find that house?
Which house?
Topher Grace meditation.
Oh, the Spanish
well, it was actually in
Spain.
It says it's in
Utah.
Yeah.
No, it's in
actually
Spain.
in Spain.
Actually,
yes, I know. What a great find.
Yeah. Nice job.
Apparently it was on an episode of George Clark's Amazing Spaces.
Why are you telling people that? Yes, massive ravine. It was, beautiful.
That was gorgeous. Okay, so let's talk about Rachel, Jack, and Ashley. Jack and Rachel and Ashley too?
Rachel, Jack, and
Ashley too.
Okay, the Miley Cyrus episode. Was this written with her in mind, or was it pop star and then you kind of take it from there?
Yeah, it was very much that we did not think, because it would be arrogant for us to think, oh, we'll get Miley Cyrus to play this one. So so the script was written, and then it was like,
could have just gotten Andrew Scott to play the role.
Well, he's bloody. Actually, I would watch that. You know, that's the thing. It's like, because we thought, who can we get to play this part?
Andrew Scott,
but we just filmed Smithereens. We were like, we can't do that. So it was genuinely, we had a conversation. It was like, well, in an ideal world, you'd get someone like Miley Cyrus,
right? But
we're not going to get her. So who can play? Because it's always annoying if you're watching a film or a TV show, whatever it is, about a fictional performer, be they a comedian or a musician, or a performer of any kind, and you don't quite believe that the stuff they're doing would be as popular as you're saying it is in the story. Which meant two things. One, it meant that early on, we asked permission from Trent Reznor to convert Nine Inch Nails tracks into dance pop songs, knowing that they were catchy songs first and foremost, and they would work. And they had to be, because we're not saying that her music is shit.
No.
In it. Like, we're not saying that the Ashley O character's music is shit. It's bloody catchy. Like, everyone was humming those songs. It's just that the character we show, it's not quite what she wants to do. She wants to do something different for a while. Back to Miley. So we thought, well, who could we possibly get? Well, it would be great if we got someone like Miley Cyrus. We won't get her, but therefore we got nothing to lose by at least
asking.
Sure.
But we'll just get ignored probably. But we didn't get ignored. It turned out she'd heard of the show and liked it. And then so we sent her the script and she liked that too. And then quite quickly we were on a Skype call with her and it became apparent that she is, she's just very, very funny, very smart, has a good sense of, takes her job obviously very seriously, but also has a good sense of, a healthy sense of the absurdity of that world. Had some things there were certain things in the script that she really responded to, and she had quite a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I was wondering if she had any input. Any
lots of input, yeah. I mean, given that she started as the Disney pop star and then, tried to carve out her own identity and her own music and that whole journey that she's been on to find her own identity, quite a difficult one when all of the pressures and commercial pressures of an industry saying, this is what you do, this is the way to, to maintain your mass pop stardom. So she's fought a very difficult had a difficult journey to get to where she is now. So she had lots of experiences and comments and gave us lots of little ideas and texture that we put into the script. And then even on set, in terms of coming up with the look of Ashley O and how she would position herself and her attitude, or whether it's on a talk show or how she'd deal with fans. It's sort of, all of it was all rich territory.
Music is such an important part of this series in general. I mean, just in terms of the way, especially the way it weaves its way through Bandersnatch and San Junipero, obviously this episode. Do you find yourselves still inspired by records from your life over the course of your life that kind of pop up? Either they pop up in the show itself or you actually draw like, oh, that one lyric, it's kind of like this, because these songs pop up again and again too.
Yeah, that is absolutely what happens. I mean, and I can give specific examples. So in San Junipero, I was in the middle of writing the script when I went for a run, listening to Spotify, and I'd made a sort of playlist of tracks from 1987, and then it started playing, or the algorithm started playing, Heaven is a Place on Earth. And I suddenly thought, oh my God, that's like this sounds, to use a Britishism, wanky, which just means pretentious or like ridiculous.
We've used that phrase over here too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sort of saw the ending.
That's awesome.
I sort of saw the ending and thought, oh, right, that was what gave me the image of the server farm, for instance. Oh, Heaven is a Place on Earth, but it's that. Okay, and so I was running. I literally ran home and started sort of typing that, and I was like, oh my God. And then I was terrified we wouldn't be able to get the
Thank
rights
God
to
you
the
didn't
song.
start playing Tekken when you got home.
That happened later, clearly. And then with Rachel, Jack and Ashley too, I was like thinking, well, we need pop songs that sound, and also what do you do? And Head Like a Hole came on, and I thought, hang on a minute, this is both like, it's a nihilistic sort of cry of like anger and rage and self-loathing and despair and like also, it's all of that. It's this industrial, but it's also bloody catchy.
Yeah.
And there's something oddly, it's defiant and somehow triumphant. So I sort of thought I could see you could turn this into a pop song.
Sure.
And you could also have this at the end played in a triumphant, grungy way as a sort of statement of triumph and freedom.
And freedom.
So sometimes those things definitely happen. I had exactly this experience literally yesterday. I went for a run here and something came up and I sort of saw an entire episode.
Wow.
So I got quite... And it doesn't happen that often. I wish it did, because I'd just be... The problem is you have to be running, which is... I'd noticed that if I don't go running for a while, not only do I expand in size, but...
we have to keep you running.
I keep getting these sort of... You keep getting these
We're
little
going to get a treadmill for the office.
No, I'm not on a treadmill. It never works on a treadmill. Because you can't escape the fact that you're running on a treadmill when you're on a treadmill.
Do you like running through city, or do you like going into some path somewhere?
I don't really like running. That's the problem. It's just that I sort of feel a desperate need to... I'm just slowly expanding in size. So I need to... honestly...
Hush. Look at you. You look wonderful.
I am 9 kilograms heavier than I was this time last year.
What's 9 kilograms? How much?
It's probably over a stone.
Oh, my God.
Can we use an actual measurement?
Get your trainers on.
Yeah, £1 billion. No, it's like 80,
you look
80
great.
something. Well, I need to go running more often, because apart from anything else, every so often you can sometimes solve a script problem, because oddly you're not thinking.
Yes.
You're sort of dreaming a bit. You can't do anything else. And if you're listening to music as well, sometimes it just evokes a mood, or literally a lyric or something like that, and you go, right. And so something kicks in.
Has there ever been a time where you guys wanted to use a song in an episode, or either it didn't fit creatively, or you actually couldn't get Jimmy Page to say yes?
Yeah, there was a time we wanted to use the Smiths' Hang the DJ.
Yeah.
And which I think is a great, the Panic, which
Yeah.
I think is a great song. And then Morrissey came out in support of all sorts of far-right groups in the UK. And
he's on a roll.
And I thought, fuck. But it was too late. Do you decide?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's a tricky one, isn't it? What, we're going to stop
I mean,
listening to all of his early music?
Well, it stops me listening to his early music.
No, I know.
It does. It comes up now. It comes up now on the
And you
playlist,
skip it.
and it makes me feel, because it just makes me feel a bit bad.
Yeah.
And I don't. The songs are still catchy, and the songs are still enjoyable. But their meaning for me it just makes me immediately.
But it shouldn't, because it should be if it's evoking a time when you listen to that music.
But the time I'm listening to the music now is now.
I know, but then you should, but I think if it helps you, elicits the feelings you had at that time when you first heard that music, that's allowed to remain.
I like that rule. It's heartbreaking, really, because of what his music used to sort of, who it used to speak for, and what it used to mean. Yeah. I've taken up too much of your time. Thank you guys so much for coming by. Series 5 is available on Netflix now. I hope to see you here a year to the day, next year. We'll be going into the elections, and we can talk about Series 6.
That's going to be an interesting time, isn't it?
Yeah. It should be really chill. You keep jogging. You keep listening to Spotify.
Just running away from whatever's coming.
Thank you guys so much for coming by, Charlie and Annabel.
Thank you so much.
Today's episode of The Watch was brought to you by True Detective on HBO. The 3rd season of True Detective was hailed by critics as a triumphant return, exquisitely layered and mesmerizing. For your Emmy consideration in Outstanding Limited Series and all other categories, visit hbo.com/FYC for more on True Detective.